So hi, everyone. Welcome to the third installment of the 2022 virtual summer series hosted by ISOP NextGen. My name's Frank. I'll introduce everybody in a moment, as well as myself. But first and foremost, we kind of want to just talk about what our organization is, what we're doing here, why we're doing it. So the Insurance Society of Philadelphia is a collection of industry professionals that engaged throughout the Philadelphia region, as well as the metropolitan area and parts of New Jersey, et cetera. The Next Gen board is a group of younger professionals that have recently joined the industry or have a few years of experience. That what we're effectively trying to do is get the newer entrants into the industry and people who are interested in insurance in college, have them transition into the industry properly and have them, be able to network and explore different events, et cetera. As part of what we do with NextGen is we have a number of speaker series. This particular series that we're talking about today is a summer series. So originally we had it as an intern day, which was a lot of, presentations throughout about a 9-hour day. Now we've changed it into an 8-week-long educational series. Really, it's just a way for us to cover a lot of topics that we think that people who are younger in the industry are interested in, and could find some new avenues in insurance. Maybe hear something interesting here and kind of pursue it later on. So this is again the third installment. It's called Insurance Questions Nobody Wants to Ask. We'll get into sort of what exactly we're going to be talking about today, but really quickly. And if you have any questions on the next 2 slides, please feel free to send us an email, or you can join our mailing list on our website to get more information on both the scholarships and the grants. But we do have scholarships throughout our organization that we raise money for throughout the year from various events. Part of the requirements are you have to be a student of risk management, insurance, or actuarial science. You have to be enrolled in an accredited program, have at least 1 year of college or university study, minimum GPA of 3.0, and then show that you have some extracurricular activities. We are always accepting applications. We do accept applications on a rolling basis. That's a scholarship fund. Please let us know if you have any questions on it. We have money and we want to give it away, and we want to help students pursue their goals. And quite honestly, if we don't have students who apply, we won't be able to give the money out. So the more the merrier, and we're always happy to have more applicants. Further to that, we have professional grants as well. I won't go through all of the requirements here, but again, they're listed here. We will share some more information on this. And if you have any additional questions, please let us know. But this is more towards students or professionals who are trying to pursue designations, professional, anything that kind of is the after college, so to say. So again, if you have any questions on that, please let us know. I don't want to harbor too much on what ISOP is as a whole, because I do want to get into our presentation. So if you have any questions on ISOP, how to get more involved, Next Gen, any events we have, please let us know. Any one of our board members is happy to help. Also, one thing I do want to point out before we get started on the actual presentation, this is closed captions. So there is a button on your screen that can turn on or off closed captions. There's a toggle. So please feel free to use that if needed. And we will also have all of this transcripted, as well as the chat. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. We'll share that after the fact. So getting into it, first and foremost, I want to introduce Dave Osuch. So Dave is the treasurer of the ISOP NextGen board. He is a graduate of St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia, and he works currently at AIG as a retail property production specialist. Dave has been on the board since, I don't know, Dave, 2016? Since you were in college. 6 years. Yeah, many years ago, back when he had a St. Joe's pin on that photograph. So, Dave's been with our team for a long time. As I mentioned, he's a treasurer, and we're very, very happy to have him on the panel today. So, thanks, Dave. Next, we have Megan Rogers. Megan graduated also from St. Joseph's University, where she studied risk management and insurance. She's been with Connor Strong and Buckelew as a account manager for 3 years now. Prior to that, she was with Brown & Brown Insurance. and she's been a part of the ISOP board since 2021, I believe. And then finally, last but not least, we have Koory Esquibel. He is an underwriting director, property facultative for Arch Re Facultative Reinsurance. He graduated from the University of Georgia, where he studied risk management and insurance. Prior to working at Arch Re, he worked for Marsh for 5+ years as part of the Global Risk Management Division. And he currently has a CPCU and E designation. So with that, I'm going to take down this PowerPoint, and then we will get into some questions. So first and foremost, I want to just say to everyone who is attending, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat. We're going to be monitoring the chat, you know, and we'll take questions from there. I know a lot of you did send in questions in the first place, so thank you so much for that. You know, we'll get right into it. So again, this is sort of a panel discussion, so please feel free to jump in wherever you'd like. But I guess the first thing that I would ask for all of you was, what do you find was the thing that really helped your transition most prominently from being a student into being an industry professional? And if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about what each of your roles are and how that transition might have been for, you know, underwriting, reinsurance, and for broker. Whoever wants to start. Dave, you're the first person I see, so you're the first person that's going.
That works on my end. Yeah, so as Frank mentioned, I'm Dave Osuch. I've been with AIG for 4 years. Before that, I was at St. Joe's University, studied finance and risk management insurance. Going into my senior year at St. Joe's, I joined AIG on the property E&S underwriting team as an intern. Had a great experience with there, really got to know a few of the individuals on the team that were the key production people within the Philadelphia marketplace for AIG property. So that got me really excited during the senior year at St. Joe's. Was able to take a few more classes to build my knowledge and depth of just the different roles within the industry. Being a senior at St. Joe's within the insurance program, there's a big push on, are you going to the underwriter or the broker side? I find that's the university's doing their job as need to educate both aspects of it. But now being 4 years later, I find that the two sides are very similar, as the end goal is to provide a solution for the end user, being the client. So at AIG, our claims promise is a differentiation. And on the underwriting production side, it's getting to know people like Frank and Meg, having lunch with them. And when you build your career, you have these relationships from university and other deals that you work on. So my recommendation when you first start is just meet as many people as you can. ISOP is hosting a Philly, or not hosting, but has a event at the Phillies game next Monday. So highly recommend attending that, so you can meet other people in other roles in the industry and see where your personality fits best.
Yeah, no, Frank, I'll go next. Great plug,
yeah, sure,
for the Phillies game next week. But as Frank said, I'm Koory Esquibel. So, you know, I had a bit of an interesting transition in that my first 5 years I was on the broking side, and I've now switched over to the underwriting side. So, you know, I think I'm a testament, much like many folks in the industry, that, you know, what you may think is best suited for your skill set and what you want to do, you know, may not ultimately be where you land or end up. But I did go to school at University of Georgia. Much like many folks, you know, didn't really know what risk management was going into college, but through some of the general business school classes, took Risk Management 101, and I know a lot like a lot of you Temple and St. Joe's folks, you know, they're really good at recruiting and, you know, building up interest in risk management, which, you know, I ultimately did, and I interned at Marsh, and then shortly thereafter worked there my first year. But, you know, I think for me personally, you know, what really helped my transition the most was, you know, really just realizing that, you know, on the totem pole, you know, I was the newest person. And so my main job there was to listen. You know, you really want to add value right away. You want to be a go-getter. You want to do everything you can. But, you know, first and foremost, what I think is most important is just listening and being curious. And, you know, being curious really just allows you to, you know, try and learn new things, whether it's new discipline, property casualty, etc., or it's just kind of learning more within the form and more within the nuance of whatever your role is. But I do think first and foremost, it's being, just making sure you're listening first and always being curious.
So with that, I'll go
Megan?
next. So I'm Megan Rogers. As Frank had mentioned, I graduated from St. Joe's the same year as Dave. And from there, I went and worked at Brown & Brown in Mount Laurel for 1 year. And then I made the transition over to Connor Strong, and I've been there for 3 years now. I think what that first year after graduating is the hardest year, and no one ever talks about it. You're 23 and you've gone your whole life in school, and you've been constantly been given positive affirmations by, maybe it's a relationship with your professor, or it's getting that A that you like studied and worked really hard for, and then you come into the real world and you don't have that. And so I've had these conversations, like I remember having them with my friends at 23, and now I see it with our younger account analysts at Connor Strong. They kind of come to me as a mentor and ask about, is this feeling of kind of, am I doing this right, normal? And it totally is. What Koory had said is like, the term is like to be a sponge. That is so true. You go from knowing everything, at least you think you know everything in college, to going into your first job, and you very quickly realize that you know nothing. You knew the textbook answers, but you didn't really know how to apply it. So you're just looking to learn from the people above you, trying to find what you like and don't like. Maybe you thought you really wanted to be an underwriter, but then you get into the role and maybe that's not it, and that's okay. I was only at 1 year at Brown & Brown, and I think part of that was I really loved the job, but I didn't really like the culture itself. So like that's also really important, and that's not something you're going to learn in college, of what type of work environment you like. As you get further out from when you graduated, it gets easier. You settle in. I've been at Connor Strong now for 3 years. I love it. I don't intend on going anywhere anytime soon, but it's a process, and I think patience is very, very important. That like you're gonna figure it out, I promise.
Yeah, I think that's I think all three of those are spot on. And Megan, something I wanted to touch on that you just mentioned, in the first year you almost feel like and it really feels this way, I think, at all companies, but you feel almost like you're on an island because you're not sure sort of what your metrics are. To your point, I mean, when you're in college, when you're a student, you know what your metrics are, right? Pass, fail, A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever, right? So whereas when you're in the workforce, I mean, it really comes down to understanding and listening and asking questions in that first year, in the first couple of years, so that you really know what everyone's looking for and what a good work product looks like, so that you're able to sort of replicate that going forward. So I wanted to ask, sort of in that same vein, as far as what any given day-to-day looks like in each of your three roles. I guess my question is, how do you each engage the other aspects of insurance? So for the underwriting side, Dave, how might you engage brokers? Do brokers engage you? How is your relationship with reinsurance? Koory, if you and Dave, how does that relationship work? And then one step further to that, so that I know that I'm not ignoring my actuary friends on the call. How do actuaries play into each of your roles? Because I know when I was in college, I didn't realize that actuaries exist in all insurance realms. So brokerages, underwriters, they have them as reinsurers. So whoever wants to take that one first.
Meg, why don't you start from the broker side?
Okay, so all I do is work with underwriters. I don't have a job without my underwriters, aka Dave. So the clients are coming to me because they realize that they're not insurance experts, and they might have a little bit of an idea, but they're really relying on their broker to be able to be that expert for them. And we really like to think of ourselves as an extension from their financial team. So I'm very closely working with CFOs and their general counsel. From there, I will assess their risk, see what I think would be the best options for them in the best markets. And then I immediately have to go out to all my underwriters. I myself cannot put together a policy for them. So that's when I would go and reach out to Dave for our property insurance. I might reach out to a specific healthcare broker, underwriter, because that's primarily where I do a lot of my work. So all I do all day long is go back and forth with underwriters and negotiate. And at the end of the day, we both have the same common goal, which is to do right by our client and to do best by them. Frank, I apologize. I forget your second part of your question.
It was how do you engage actuaries? Like, are actuaries a big part of your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I think that's
how do you engage actuaries?
That's probably more so, I would think, on the underwriting side, but we do kind of strong partner with an actuary firm, and for some of our much larger accounts, just to make sure that we're collecting the right collateral, if we have the right loss forecasting. But it's not as much as my day-to-day, but we do work with them where it is needed.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, that actuaries are at the brokerages. They may not necessarily be engaged on every single account, but they're there to sort of make sure that they're almost an internal accounting, so to say, that they'll make sure that whatever we're being charged or whatever the client has put up for collateral makes sense. They're not overcharging it. So
yes,
that's helpful.
I can hop in here now since I'm the next part of the funnel. So just to reiterate for Meg, her Connor Strong will be going directly to the client. And then for Meg to provide a solution for the client, she serves as the gatekeeper to underwriters. And then underwriters serve as the gatekeeper to capital. So needs the capital and the promise if there's a large loss that the insurance carrier can pay it and provide the indemnification that's required. So my role, I need to be out in front of the market, having lunch with people like Frank at Aon, Megan at Connor Strong, and articulating where can AIG property make the biggest difference for our brokerage partners. And then this is a perfect example with Meg being in healthcare. That's a major growth area for my team specifically. So I would like to give her a call on what's coming up on your desk. What renewals are you having issues with right now? What are the problematic parts of this renewal where AIG can be a differentiation? From there, we get the submission in from Meg and her team that's prepared by them. And that'll include a statement of values, different engineering, loss history, and any narrative. I share that with my modeling team and actuaries. So those are really embedded in together in order to create a technical premium that I utilize as a basis and a benchmark on our technical premium is X. We win this deal at 110% of technical. So let's go out at 115 and see if we can negotiate somewhere between 110, where be our walk away price, and 115, which is our target price. From there, it's a perfect transition to Koory, and this is a great way to set this up. If I have any problematic locations, let's say this healthcare group is located along the Caribbean and there's a large windstorm exposure across the schedule or just on one location, we can either purchase spot pack or back across the entire schedule in order for us to be comfortable with the risk and the full program. As the underwriter's job at the end of the day is get them as many looks as possible and find the looks that'll make you money this year and 5 years down the road. And that's the key part of the broking trade partners like Connor Strong and Aon with us articulating, this is what we want to do today, this is where we're going, and this is where we can really align. So Koory, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that, Dave. And, we're essentially on the reinsurance arm, what you've heard through school, in your first couple of years, we're the hidden arm kind of within this whole value chain, right? Megan has the client that needs insurance. And so therefore she is the gatekeeper between the client and the insurance company, being Dave in this example. But Dave, in order to get a deal done, he needs reinsurance on his end. So that's a piece of the transaction that happens really behind the scenes, unbeknownst to the client. And I guess if we just take one step back further for a moment, because I don't want to take for granted that maybe everybody may not know kind of how reinsurance works at our core. But really, at a high level, reinsurance is on a treaty basis and it's on a facultative basis. And on a treaty basis, think of that more as a portfolio. It's automatic. If it fits within the realm of whatever we're drawing the box around, it's automatically going into it. So for Dave's example, all hospitals that are above $100 million will automatically go into Dave's tree. And so Dave doesn't necessarily need to come to us and say, hey, I would like to add this hospital. It's automatically done. Now, the other side of that is the facultative side of reinsurance, which is where I'm currently in. And think of that more on an individual risk basis. Now, it certainly can be a larger schedule and some more complex risk, but more often than not, it's a one-off deal, exactly what Dave was describing, in that there's this problematic location that, absent this location, AIG can really make this deal work. And so they need a little bit of help on the back end to either hedge the risk, or they just need to be able to gross up their net capacity. And so they'll come to reinsurance. And so, ultimately that's where we fall within the value chain. And, how I work to interact with my customers, which my customer is solely insurers. So I only work with insurers. And our goal is really to produce and maintain our own book. So much like at, say a broking firm or a direct retail carrier, you usually have, marketing folks within your territory, or you have production specialists within your territory that, they'll go out and make sure there's awareness for the brand, for the product. And then there'll be a desk underwriter or somebody on the back end, or just a account management team on the broking side that handles the deal. On the reinsurance arm, we run a bit more lean. A lot of our companies, range from anywhere from 5 to 150 people total within the facultative units. So we run much more lean, meaning we do just a lot more of the core functions. So, in my role, I would be the one going to meet Dave, going to meet other underwriters, making sure that there's that same awareness that Dave was speaking about, and that they understand, I understand, one, what are Dave's needs from a underwriting perspective, and then how we can then help. And then Frank, really just to answer the last part of the question, is with the actuaries. So within the actuary group, from an underwriting perspective, really none of what we do is possible without actuaries. Thankfully, they're a lot smarter. They've been tested quite a bit more rigorously than we're based in our normal day-to-day function. But all of the models, all of our ground up rates, our loss costs, our expected profit, all of those wonderful terms you learned in insurance operations, that's all kind of built within the actuarial models. And the actuarials go within all of the data tables and data sets that allow us to basically say, for any individual risk, no matter what the nuances are, here's what we expect the loss cost to be. And then every insurer is going to add on an expected profit. And essentially that's how you'll get a technical premium. And so now, in order to write profitable risk in the long term, I need those two components. And without actuaries being able to build that on the back end, none of this value chain would be possible.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think one thing that I heard all three of you touch on is that I think there's this misconception in the insurance industry that underwriters only talk to brokers. Brokers are only market facing or just to the client. And there's sort of a misconception as to who talks to whom. And I think all three of you sort of hit on the point that each company has sort of all role players involved, right? So you have marketing people who are sort of going out and trying to, build the relationship between the underwriter and the broker, or the reinsurer and the underwriter, whoever the case is. But you have those everywhere. You have actuaries everywhere. I think that's helpful, because I think in college and in school in general, I think a lot of times students are taught really, if you are someone who's out and about and loves to talk a lot and is very people oriented, then you're a broker. But if not, and you're more technical, and you're an underwriter. That's not necessarily true. Some of the most talkative people, i.e. my friend Dave, underwriter, right? And then I have some friends who are a little bit more reserved, but they're phenomenal brokers. So it really comes down to what role that you're in at any given firm, because there is a lot of opportunity available. So I guess to that next question, each of you, what is one misconception that you feel like is always thrown out about your particular role? I guess the one that sort of comes to mind immediately is, Dave, and don't take this one, but underwriters are also claims people. So you guys know everything about claims, even though, when you hear underwriter in school, you're thinking a person, but really you're talking about an entire organization of people. So there's claims handlers, there's claims representatives, there's actual adjusters, there's, Dave, who's underwriting the account from the high end. I guess I'll leave it there and just ask the three of you, what's a misconception that you guys feel as though is kind of always pushed about your particular role? How do you dispel that?
Sure,
Megan, you
I'll
want to
go
go first?
ahead. So I remember in college exactly what you just said was underwriters behind the desk, punching numbers, brokers, you're out talking all the time, socializing. I literally remember a professor of mine in college be like, Meg, you're not made to be an underwriter. You're definitely for the brokers. So what I find to be interesting though is that I am behind my desk 90% of the time. Only time I'm not is if I am meeting with a client, which we meet with them very frequently throughout the year, or if I am meeting with underwriters. But the majority of my job is behind my computer, gathering information. I think there's a big misconception between what a producer is and what a broker is. So producers, that's a department within a broking agency, and they're the ones that are on the hunt for the new clients. They are never ever in the office. They're very hard to find because they're always out meeting new prospects and to bring in hopefully them into Connor Strong and to have them trust us. From there, the producers then will bring the account, and then I will then handle the account through it its duration at Connor Strong. So I think that was a big misconception. And something very interesting I read on LinkedIn recently was that underwriters are salespeople. So when you think of salespeople, you immediately think of the producers, but that's not the case. And I'm sure Dave will talk about this, but Dave has to make relationships with all of his brokers to have someone like me and my team trust him and want to work with him. So there's very frequently, I'll know which underwriters I want to work with and which underwriters I don't want to work with. Or if one underwriter is not as responsive, I might think like, okay, maybe this is the year I market it to a different carrier. So definitely don't think that sales is only on the broker side.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, Megan. And it's interesting from my broking days that that's just absolutely true. Is that it just goes back to being curious and really soaking up as much as you can in your early years, because when it's your time to be, the face of whatever that account is, the folks like Megan really want to know, like, all right, I can trust Dave's going to take this and he's going to take care of my account, because at the end of the day, Megan's responsibility is for the client, so she has to make sure and promise them that she's going to the best individuals. But to answer the misconception on our end, I really think maybe one of two things is that one, in reinsurance, some folks may see it as like high level underwriting, when really ultimately that's not the case whatsoever. We're putting our capital on the line the same way a primary underwriter is, or a primary insurance company is. And so therefore, whatever the details and the underwriting specifications are needed in order to do a deal, we need to see those exact same things, and we view them in the exact same way. So, we're diving into a risk just as much as, a primary insured is, for the most part. And then really the second piece is, I think a lot of people think reinsurance is purely cyclical. And that's more so kind of what I was speaking to earlier on treaty versus facultative. Treaty reinsurance is very much so cyclical in that, you have your 1/1 heavy treaty period, you have your 6/1 heavy treaty period, but not all reinsurance is that way. And reinsurance, specifically on the facultative side, is anything but that, in that, there's always renewals, and, in any given month, the submission flow certainly doesn't stop.
Yeah, the key point I heard from Koory and Megan was just the concept of trust, and that makes the whole industry a sales job. So for our underwriting side, it's building trust with the brokerage, but also building trust with your leadership team and home office, as it's a team on every aspect of it. So for myself, I might be able to do X amount, have authority to do X amount of money, but a lot of these larger deals or more complex deals that require a single carrier or shared and layered, they're going to require multiple eyes on it. So it's building the trust internally is equally as important as externally. So if Frank, let's say, is my manager here, and he looks at my files and knows I'm diligent and reviewing things in a certain way to create a positive scenario for AIG, then that makes his job easier, hereby also making Meg's job easier as a broker, because we're going to be able to provide a solution. Biggest thing on the carrier side with the sales portion of it is making the relationship and fostering it with the broker having a success story, and then from there, having the relationship be, here's the path to the next win, versus just, we need to have someone from AIG review this submission. So that's the biggest ask from the carrier side, is get to know the broker and have the trust of your home office in order to get the most deals done to create profit long term.
You know, I think all three of those are helpful. I think honestly, the genesis of this entire presentation, I think, was to really have the misconceptions that are in insurance kind of dispelled. Because I know when I was in school, you know, it was a bit nerve-wracking to ask the professor something that, quote unquote, we should have already known, or maybe we should have already known the difference between, or whatever the case is. So this is really that forum. I guess to pivot a little bit from what your day-to-days look like and sort of what you guys have found success in, where do you find the most success in your role when trying to engage your manager, or in trying to engage people that you may not have met that many times on a day-to-day basis, or it may not be pre-COVID where you saw the person 5 days a week, maybe now you only see them 1 or 2. What's a good way of engaging that person, or group of people, whoever it might be, that you found has been successful recently for you during the sort of hybrid virtual in-person times where, a lot of times people go in the office on a day because they have meetings in person from start to end?
Yeah, I'll go
Or
first.
let's start with you this time.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think ultimately, there's a lot of, right answers to this question. And I think it really comes to player profile. In the same way you need to know kind of your client and then what their makeup is, you really need to know your boss. And so, for example, one of my early managers within the insurance industry, he was the classic from 9 to 5 p.m. Every slot on his calendar was full. So the only way to kind of sit down and have quality time to really make sure, one, that I'm doing all the right things, but also make sure that I'm kind of progressing my learning, was I literally needed to find that open slot and put an Outlook calendar appointment on his calendar. And, it was always super stressful because I was standing outside his door, waiting for that last person to leave, and I was literally running in, right? And, so that was a bit tougher, right? But it was knowing the player profile and knowing he appreciated that, because, the last thing that, that individual wanted, because of their complex schedule, was someone just dropping in and carrying on with a 15-minute conversation when that really wasn't necessary at the time. And then fast forward to now, ultimately, I think in the more so hybrid work from home environment, and where we're doing a lot of things virtually like we are now, it's just knowing, during the day, it's like, okay, I know we've had our first coffee in the morning, it's early in the week. This is the best time my manager and I catch up. So I give my manager a call and I talk through what's on my desk. And, just at a very high level, I go through, what my plan is for the week. These are kind of the key accounts that I need to touch on. And I'll kind of plant the seed for, you'll probably hear from me on X, Y, and Z, setting the expectation that I'm going to have a more comprehensive review on these accounts later. But I look forward to chatting with you. And, Frank, that's where I personally get the most value in underwriting, is I'll pitch a deal, I'll pitch my view of it, but then it goes back to day one, right? I just shut up and listen. And it's time to, okay, here's my view of it. Please tell me, how you saw it differently, or how I should be looking at it maybe from a different lens.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think just before Dave or Maggie jump in, I think to your point about knowing player profile, everybody's boss is not going to be the same, and quite honestly, not everyone who's trying to reach out to their boss is going to be the same. So you do have to sort of understand yourself and kind of how you best, connect with people. If you're someone who, like me, I could sit in a room and talk to someone for an hour and not hit anything we meant to talk about because I'm just a talkative guy. If you're like that, make sure that you go in and if you're going to set half an hour aside, make sure that you know what you're talking about for 30 minutes rather than, just chit chatting. And then, so no, that's helpful. I appreciate that. Dave or Meg?
So I'm in a pretty unique situation right now where my current boss and I have a very fluid relationship, and I don't think this is as common, but I literally have his number on speed dial and I'll call him all the time. But He's going on paternity leave as of Monday, so everyone say a little prayer for me. But without his presence, I'm gonna have to engage with all of our managing directors at Connor Strong, which is going to be much different because they don't just work with, you know, 2 people on their team. They work with managing the whole department. So back to what Koory was saying is like trying to find the time and being respectful of how busy they are. So I am absolutely a talker, but I know that with certain people in our company, they don't want to talk. They just want you to get to the point and keep going. I had my boss the other day tell me in preparation for my one boss going out is that if he touches a paper twice, it's wasting his time. And it's just so true though. So he was like, his main point of saying that was like making sure I'm available. So I know that like if his name pops up on my phone, I'm going to answer because I know that if I miss that call, I might not catch him for 3 more hours because he's so busy. So it's really just knowing who you're working with, what their style is, what their day looks like. Connor Strong has a 3-2 policy, so I'm in the office 3 days a week, where I know that these managing directors are in almost every single day. So that's easier for me to kind of catch them when in between phone calls, just pop in, ask the question I need, or talk about a certain project and then keep things moving. But I think it just comes down to being respectful and also just knowing their style.
Yeah, Koory and Meg highlighted everything you could possibly say about building the relationship with the manager. The one thing I would detail is you make your own luck. So if your manager is very account driven, doesn't want to really talk about professional progression and things along those lines, he or she might be an excellent underwriter or broker, but you make your own luck by finding other people, other managers to talk to have those type of conversations as you're doing your job to do well for your company, but also to build a career path for yourself. So just looking through the participants, there's one intern at my company that the other day I was in the kitchen, he grabbed me and then we went and got coffee, and like that was the best 30 minutes of the week. But it was also, he was able to have insight on what does underwriting look like 4 years in your career versus when you're 2 months in as an intern.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, I think the other part of that example, Dave, is don't be scared, don't be embarrassed or anxious. I mean, obviously I get the same way, even if I know someone for a while and I ask them to get coffee, you always have that fear of, hey, I can't, maybe next time, and then it doesn't. But don't let that deter you, because quite honestly, to Dave's point, like when people ask to just grab coffee or go grab some lunch, whatever, a lot of times those are when whoever it might be, managers, higher up, even just general colleagues, they might just have that small bit of time. And quite honestly, if that's all you can grab on their calendar, that's fine, but make it count, right? Like if you only have 15 minutes to grab a coffee with someone, make sure that you're using that time effectively, rather than just saying, hey, let's grab coffee, and then talking to them about like the weather. They know what the weather is. So I guess one last question that I'll ask you guys, and then we'll open it up to the Q&A section, which is the entire presentation. What are some things that you guys feel are engaging you in insurance in general, that's keeping you, I guess, interested in the industry? Because obviously we work in an industry that historically has been referred to as boring. But I know myself, my book of business is not boring. It's not because I have a ton of things to do all the time. That's true too, but it's also because my clients are interesting. And, aside from that, sort of what I read in my clients, I then read a little bit more into that industry. And I find that kind of drives my interest a little bit more. So just curious, are there newsletters or websites or podcasts, things you guys listen to, engage with, whatever the case is, that sort of help your overall learning and engagement of the insurance industry, so you never get burnt out or bored or anything like that? And it could honestly just be talking to people in the office. I mean, I know as far as I'm concerned, like some of the most helpful information I've learned about the market, soft market, hard market industry, whatever the case is, has come from just kind of hearing people in the office talking about something, and then just sort of joining that conversation or asking them about it after the fact, whatever the case is. But Just wanted to open that up to you guys and just hear sort of what you guys have found to be successful in, keeping engaged in the insurance industry and being on top of whatever your particular function is.
Yeah, Frank, I think really there's two main things for me, and honestly, I'll pat the back of ISOP and CPCU and some of the local organizations. But, what keeps me most interested is kind of learning who's new to the industry and, who are some folks that I can meet and kind of see if we can help each other out. And or just, there's so many personalities within insurance that, it's naturally fun to go to a happy hour and get to know people. Some of the folks that will introduce you to others. And so, learning through the organizations and local societies are really key. And then, things that otherwise keep me naturally curious is that, for Dave and I, we're both in the property realm. It's as much and as many years as you're in the industry, as many risks as you've looked at, it truly is ever changing. And I know for some of the, the newer markets, cyber, and then, D&O and all of those type of lines as well. There's always change. And so in our world, right, it's construction styles are always changing, right? The way they're making buildings now, it's not the way they were making them way back in the day. Climate change is something that, once again, a plug to the actuaries, absent, the modelers and the actuaries always updating kind of our real-time information, we would be making imperfect decisions. So, we're always, on our toes because of, changing things within our personal environment and, the way in which we underwrite. But, I would say those are really two of the things that come to mind.
Great. If
Taking that further, I always look at LinkedIn. You have Harvard Business Review always producing very interesting articles on management and other businesses. Insurance is in the financial services industry, so being up on what's going on in the financial market, as a lot of what we're doing day to day is relating to cost of capital and interest rates. So understanding that if interest rates are going up, your treaty costs are going up, which is going to cause the primary carrier's pricing to go up, causing the end user's pricing to go up, being the client. So following that trend, and then learning about other industries too through LinkedIn. Go on LinkedIn, you can go on your alma mater's page, click people, click and search a company in the industry or not, and see what relationship do you have with them. Reach out and just learn as much as you can, because insurance is embedded in all businesses. So if you're, like Koory mentioned, if we're working on a manufacturing firm together, what better opportunity than finding one of your classmates that works in manufacturing to pick his mind. So I'll pass that to Meg.
I think what keeps it interesting, well, one, the market itself has been keeping us all on our toes and learning something new every single day. But beyond that, I think what Koory said, like, I do attend ISOP events as much as possible. Kind of Strong internally does a lot of what we call coffee and conversations, or we're just talking about new topics. And beyond that, I just lost my train of thought. But just like reaching out with all, like, either relationships that you do have within the industry or people you don't know, and not being afraid to ask them about their job, what they're doing, and meeting with people outside of your own company. There's so much to learn. There's so many different avenues of insurance that I feel like sometimes we don't even know exist. So it's just, there is a lot of information to know.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point that you just said about, reaching out to people, whether you know them or don't know them. I actually, a personal friend of mine just entered the insurance industry after spending some time in a completely separate industry, mind you. And then when he joined, he actually told me the personal anecdote that he reached out to someone kind of just cold on LinkedIn, asking if they had any time to talk. And the woman was extremely helpful. And then he told me her name. She works in my office. So it's stuff like that where, he's a friend of mine from back home in Scranton, and he's connecting with someone in Philadelphia that works 5 desks away from me. So, and you know what, I guess the thing that we'll sort of end with here, and then we'll leave it open if anyone does have any questions that they want to unmute for. Dave, to your point, LinkedIn, all of us are on LinkedIn. Quite honestly, LinkedIn is like the easiest way of getting someone's ear without actually walking up directly to their face. I think in some ways it might be even more effective than email, because LinkedIn pops up on my phone and it has a separate icon, right? So I see it different. But we're all on LinkedIn, the four of us, everybody on the board, and quite honestly, most people in the insurance industry. So, reach out to people, connect with people, connect with the four of us, after the call. Just really try to expand your network and cast as wide of a net as possible, because again, it's not that you're necessarily going to be reaching out to, a rival firm because you're trying to get a job from them. It could honestly just be because you want to pick their brain and hear how they think. And if you're respectful about it, I think a lot of people are accepting of that. So, with that, do we have any willing participants to unmute and ask a question? We do have a couple minutes here left. And I do want to just stress one last thing before anybody does unmute. If you have any questions and you feel like you are not, comfortable in asking here, or you just want to ask sort of on the side, you could send me an email. ISOP actually just put the note in the chat function. You can send me an email post-session with any questions that you have. I'll circulate it within the three panelists, as well as, if we can't come to an answer that we feel encapsulates everything we want to say, we'll reach out to other people on the board as well to get you a good answer that, you can submit it anonymously, however you want to do it. We can open a Survey Monkey, whatever the case is. So, do you have any unmuting questions? I can't tell. If not, like I said, we have about 2 minutes here left. So I did want to first and foremost thank everybody that is on the call from the panelist perspective, Dave, Koory, and Megan. Thanks again for joining. I'll put up this last slide here. And yeah, like I said, if there are any other questions in the meantime, please let us know. If you have any questions about NextGen, looks like Marianne has her hand up. Hi, Marianne.
Hi. Not so much a question, but, one of the things I just wanted the audience to know is that, this session that Frank has set up with these wonderful panelists is one that, we felt was so necessary to allow you guys to have the opportunity to ask whatever questions you want. And there were questions submitted in that our panelists have been able to speak on, but I would highly encourage you, take this moment, take this opportunity. I know that there's a question burning in someone's mind that they're not sure if they want to be the one to raise their hand or unmute or type in the chat, but now's an opportunity. That's part of why, we've provided this session for you. Please go ahead and, speak up. You won't regret it. These folks have been amazing. So just wanted to make that last plug for that.
Yeah, no, fully agree. Like we said at the beginning, we'll say it at the end, we'll say it, forever. If you guys have a question about anything insurance related, or, about transitioning into the industry related, whatever the case is, feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're happy to help you out. I'll say personally, I've asked more stupid questions than there are people on the call. So if you have a question that you're like, there's no way I can ask this, ask me. I'll give you the answer. I already asked it. So I guess with that, thank you everyone for attending. I'm going to rely on the ISOP, Sarah, hopefully can close this out, but thank you again, everyone, for joining. If you have any questions, this is our socials. And yeah, we're looking forward to the next one. We'll have another one next Friday at the same time. I believe that one is Cyber with Iyad Kabani. Will be the panel host. So look forward to that. And please look in your emails for some information on that should either already be there or will be upcoming as well, as a second note. So